Welcome to the Fractional Podcast. Today I've got the wonderful Tim Kihiko, who is working on an absolutely fantastic project on the Fractional platform. Tim, introduce yourself to our listeners. Who are you? What are you working on? And what is this club about?
All right, good. Yes, my name is Tim Kihiko, and I'm out here in, you would say, Boston, but it's in Lowell, about another 40 minutes to Boston for easy. And right now we have this project I'm very excited about. Ultimately, we're gonna end up with about 187 unit. It's an old courthouse that we're gonna do we're gonna do we're gonna convert it, we're gonna reuse it, and kind of make it into an apartment building.
That's super exciting. Definitely
hmm
not the usual thing that you hear, turning a courthouse into an apartment building. How did you come across that deal?
yeah, so I was looking at another property, and there was a bunch of multifamilies were going out on auction, and so I was looking at that. The guy kept canceling the auction, so I was looking for the opportunity. It had about 14 apartment building, and then I, as I was looking for that, I found this one, and then I was like, oh my God, this is even a better deal. And so the state is looking to get rid of these vacant buildings and stuff like that because they build new ones, and to kind of solve the housing shortage because there's a lot of demand here. So I worked with them to get through the approval process, and luckily I got approved, and then ultimately I went for the auction, and I won the bid. Exactly at the number that I was looking at, which is a very very good number. That kind of represent about 10,000 per unit, which is pretty good because for what you can for anything here, normally nobody builds apartment, and for those that does, they're about 60 per unit, the land cost, right? So most people actually end up doing townhouses. They're usually $100 per unit that you're gonna get, and then so this one kind of worked out pretty good, under 10,000 per unit. It's going to be a long process, but ultimately it's going to be pretty good.
I love that. That's incredible. And Tim, you've closed hundreds of transactions just over, the last years, right? What do you feel like that has brought you in terms of an edge that other operators just don't have?
Yes, the biggest thing is, especially is in the construction. I think the construction cost has gone really up, is really up there. But when you really you look down on it, mostly, the guy that's holding the gun. The gun is the framing gun, or the tile guy, or stuff like that. They're not really making that much money, so you see that. So I think, being on the field and being on the trenches, and, having the connection with the direct, the people who doing the work, that kind of gives me a very, a kind of very good edge.
Yeah. How do you feel like that has changed the way that you negotiate some of these numbers?
Um, so mostly is that mostly is to show very well, is to actually realize where the problem is, right? Because sometimes the homeowner is not able to know, like, hey, this is where the problem is and stuff like that, and what is going to arise, and then being able to show them that ultimately you can close, and because you know what you're doing, so ultimately it shows that you can actually, end up closing and, at a, at a better price.
That makes a ton of sense, and I also feel like that makes your budgeting on pro forma, all those things when you put a deal together, right? That you know exactly how much you're going to spend versus when it's outsourced to a GC, you have less control of those costs.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. And Tim, I mean, this is a very spectacular opportunity. I'm curious, what are the deals that you've said no to? What makes this one different, and how does that compare to, something where you're getting it on your desk, but you're saying that's a no deal?
Yeah, so the biggest challenge is the biggest challenge when it comes to real estate is actually getting equity from day one. That's the biggest challenge because there's stuff for sale all the time. The question is, at what price are you gonna get it, right? And then where are you gonna go from there? If there is a problem, let's say for example, a couple of units are not rented. There's some delays. You have some bad tenants, different things like that. So it really depends on the how much you're offering, and how much you're able to create equity. So when it comes to when you can do the construction and when you can do the work, or when you know how to do the work, so that gives you the edge of creating equity there from day one. And then the simple fact that you knock out a lot of competition, so that kind of gives you a bigger edge. So out there, for starters, I'm gonna come in, I'm gonna do the work, I'm gonna create the equity. I'm gonna make the bank feel safe. So when the bank come in and they have to refinance, then I'll have all the money I've put into the deal, and then I'll still be able to cash flow and still be able to make money. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, it's like a business, and it's just a matter of what's coming in and what's going out, and then so how much you're making. So that's the key. So on this deal, is that we're gonna buy the land at a very, very, very low price, and then on top of that is that we have the government support as in regards to getting the approval. As a matter of fact, they're saying that we're gonna give you close to almost $500,000 of the money back if you can provide us two housing. I mean, no, 9 housing within the next 2 years. So, I can't imagine them pushing you to have that a housing, and then on the other hand, kind of trying to derail you, as into that regard. So, it's a very, very good opportunity where which is rare to happen, where the government actually is working with the developer. So that's a pretty good opportunity.
That makes a ton of sense. And I mean, Tim, like you're working on something that's, obviously a big undertaking, and with, any sort of big project, right? It's not going to be a solo operation. So I would love to learn about, how you've built up the team, where your superpower is, and then what are the other superpowers that your team members are bringing to the table.
Yeah, so the key to my part is actually my partner, my friend. His name is John Sullivan. He actually bought another building that used to be a school. That was like almost 25 years ago. All right, and he worked on it. He always told me that he worked on it for 80 years before he could even get any penny from it. And it was worth it. It was good hard work, and then ultimately it kind of paid off. So today, with everything there, I think in a month he gets um, about close to 60,000 on that project. But at the beginning it was a hard project. It was kind of painful. The cost was there because it was right there. He bought it, and before he could get everything all lined up, then kind of the market crash in '08. So, but he fought with it, and, he finally brought the ship to shore. And, so now, he has tons of experience in this thing. He was born into construction. His dad was doing real estate, and then he grew up into it. So that's the key. That's the biggest key from that's a big plus on it. I also do have another partner, or a team member, and he's an architect, and so he's able to kind of line things through the right way, and he knows all the codes, the zoning, whatever it's kind of required. So to have some of these smart people in your team, so that's the key. And I would say for me, you know, except the fact that I work all the time, I think the key is that, I'm able to question things, right? Well, why does this, why, why do we build it this way? Why do we have to do it this way? Who said we have to, make it this way? For example, here, the houses there, you see a house that was built in 1700. They build it the same way, they frame it the same way, they go the same way. So I'm able to kind of come in and ask, well, is there another way to do it this way? Why do we have to do it this way? Why does this, you know you know beam need to be this way, right? Like, why is that? Could it be lower? Could it be smaller? And then, people, uh, you know, people are able to kind of think outside the box and then figure things out. And then ultimately, the end goal is producing a good product you know, that's gonna rent out, and also, reducing the cost that it costs you, because ultimately you're gonna have to pay for that one way or the other. So if you go back to the principle and you have the fast cost down, and then you produce a bigger product, a better, you know, product, where the tenant is gonna, feel good, or the buyer, the end user is gonna also look at it. So the money that we saved here, that wasn't important, and that was just a plug and play from whatever years, you put it out on to something else, like, better lighting and better stuff like that, which, you know the normal consumer sees. Then, ultimately you end up, doing pretty good.
That makes a ton of sense. And one thing, Tim, that you mentioned was, John, even from doing his project with the school, right? Like he went through a lot of hiccups, the market obviously crashing in '08. And I would say right now we're also in a very interesting market. There's been a lot of news, especially in multifamily, right, with what has happened in some of those larger projects. What are, you and John's biggest takeaways, especially drawing on his past experiences, that how you guys have thought about risk mitigation or plan Bs, or how you're even doing the underwriting on how to avoid some of those situations this time around for this project?
Yeah. So the biggest takeaways on our part is the bond rate, which is like the biggest issue, especially when you have a construction, right? So you have a construction, and you're waiting for the permits, you're waiting for the city, you're waiting for other things that are not in your control, but you still have to pay insurance, you still have to pay the note, you don't really have any money coming in and stuff like that. So that's the biggest cost, and that's the biggest challenge that you can have. So the way we're doing it, not only are we trying to get the easiest path of least resistance, as in regards to provide the necessary housing that the state has mandated us to get. That's one part of it. And then now we're going to get, some money back. So that brings our costs lower. Is that also, it is also, we're trying to, what will be the easiest what would be the fastest way to get there, and that's one of, like, in this project we're starting on one section of land that it will not be complicated, and we can get a nice box, apartment complex, like 43 units, and then once we have that, now we will be on a very, very, good situation, because our land cost is really low. So we only, we're going to get some rebate, as in regards we're not going to be paying taxes on the property, because they want us to provide housing. So we're negotiating on our tax bill on that end. And then now we're going to go to the other side, and then we're going to try to make the other deal, take our time to do the other deal, because we already recovered most of the money. We are profitable on just one section, so everything else is an upside. So if we have to wait another 6 years to go do the other project, we know we're already on a good footing.
That's so amazing to hear, just how methodical you are with each piece of the strategy and putting that in place, especially with the risk mitigation. And I think a lot of investors see that, because you've already got people that have committed and joined your club. I would love for you to just share, why you feel like those folks joined, like what exactly about the club pulled them in, and what got them excited to do this with you.
So the biggest I think the biggest issue, the biggest factor is that one, they already, most of them, they already know me. They've seen me around, and they've seen as I was starting the business. And then also for them is that they also are saying that they've seen how, how the rent has gone up. And they've seen that, because the 2x4 is still gonna be 2x4. Well, now we gotta use 2x6. They changed the code, but it's like, the dollar is not the same, right, as it was. But this, if you already have it, like right now, if you have a building, and even if somehow you was able to take it into pieces and sell it into one item, like the way they do cars, they part cars out into pieces, like you will make a lot more money that way. So they've seen the value in real estate, and then they have also seen the value on multifamily, because it's just like, we're in a town, this, there's no more land, right there. You go on, Google Earth, and you look around, you only see this piece of property, and it's right there in the middle of everything. So they're saying, oh, wow, this is an opportunity. I can't even believe that this was there. So the biggest I think the biggest thing is just to seeing, a piece of land in the middle of everything else, that, you don't have to go out there, with all these other bigger costs, bringing in the road, bringing in utilities and all of that stuff. So that's the key on it.
That makes a ton of sense. And in terms of, the right people that should be a part of this club, do you feel like, maybe there are like certain financial goals they're looking for, where they would make this club would be a better fit for them? Maybe it's their passion in what you're doing. What does someone look like, where if you talk to them, you would tell them absolutely you need to be inside the club, versus someone maybe that has a different set of goals that this wouldn't be the right opportunity for them?
Yeah. So the right person it's somebody that they can do it by themselves, and they want to plug into already functioning system. So it's like, it's like it's like I have my own cart. Like, think of it like there's a train already going, and then these people are giving me a chance to hook up my cart to that train that's already moving. So everything is already set up, everything is already oiled, is already moving. You're just joining in to kind of already move with it, because here the system is already there. We know we have put in place everything. So you're coming in, you're joining, a kind of a good system in it, as opposed to you as an investor, starting, from scratch, figuring things out, like where do I start? How do there's so many things. Who are the team members? What do I need? There's so many questions that you would have if you was already started, and then especially if you don't have a lot of time. So, you come into a team of guys that are already in the business, they're already doing, they already have the system, and you plugged in, and you go with them. So I think that's the biggest key on it.
I love that analogy that you made, because that's honestly one of my personal big mindset shifts is like, why build something from scratch when you can be a part of a rocket ship, right? Where that is really the jumping board for a much accelerated growth. And I think that's exactly what you described, right? Like, rather than someone figuring out everything from ground zero, they can latch onto your train, right? And you guys can move so much faster together. What is, the club member experience that you're looking to provide? Someone says they're part of the club. What is that going to look like for the lifetime of the club?
I think the key and what is good is that not only are you gonna be making money, but also is that you have you're learning, so you're getting to learn, you're getting to see how these things work, how they are. So it's like you're getting a chance to kind of learn and see how how things are put together, how they work. So I think that's the biggest key part, and that's the biggest takeaway on it.
Yeah, and how are you thinking about just showing the ins and outs of how these pieces are done? I love that you mentioned learn and earn, right? Because that's a huge part of what the club is like, hey, someone that's investing, right? It's not just about making the money, but it's being part of the inner circle, having a seat at the table to actually uncover, right? Like, how does operating, such an opportunity work? Are you guys doing reports, Zoom meetings? What is that going to look like?
Yes. So we will have weekly meetings. As we go, as things comes out, and then we go over what are the options that we have, and what are the principles that we have. So let's say like today we were thinking, like on the transaction, on the deal that we're putting together, there's a little property that's right there in the middle, right? And even though it doesn't really add, like, let's say it doesn't really add value per se, like we're not gonna be able to get like 5 more units just because we bought it, but the parking configuration kind of helps out. So in a way that the setbacks and everything that you're required to have, when we buy this property that's also part of the thing, it kind of open up a lot of the site to a more regular, let's say like a regular triangle. It's still not good. It's not like good like triangle, but that kind of helps. And those are the things that that you go out there and you're like, oh, I didn't know that. Oh, I didn't know that kind of makes sense. Then you look at it, oh, we're going to spend 400 and we're buying it for 1.6, 400 for this small piece because of this. Yes, because this is making sense, because this is adding this many, it's going to bring this much flexibility to the deal. So that's, for a lot of people, they're looking at it, then they can see things. And also, you're thinking about it like, okay, this new zoning that they're pushing, where is MBTAs kind of thing, and that area that they're saying like, hey, you know what? Because people can work in Boston, take the train. We're gonna improve the train service. We are losing a lot of people from Boston. We have the best schools here. and then people come here, they can't find housing. Even if they can find a job, they can't find a good housing, so it doesn't make sense for them to be here. So the government is trying to improve, as in, they're not going to do anything else in Boston. It's already full. It's like, okay, what about all these other towns that are connected to the train station? How are we going to be able to move people there? So when they have that, when these particular sections where you're close to the train station, like where we are, then there's a lot of flexibility as in regards to parking and stuff. So, now you being there and knowing there and understanding it, now your eyes open up. You're driving to work and you're like, oh, wait a minute. What is our lot doing? That seems like it's not utilized. And by the way, the train station is near there. And then now that kind of open up. So even ways for you to, even if you wasn't gonna do the deal, but maybe you can be able to connect and be this, kind of land on it, and then is an opportunity for you to make money.
I love that. That's incredible. And you touched on so many points that really resonated with me. I mean, one, even just the theme of what you're building, right? Like accessibility, affordable housing, all of that. It's like you're actually creating real impact with the club, right? On bringing more housing opportunities, bringing more opportunities to these towns and neighborhoods, which is incredible. And I love what you mentioned, right? It's like this club is essentially planting the seed in people's heads to also recognize these opportunities that they can either tackle themselves or maybe bring them to you, bring them to the club, bring them to other people that they know, right? Where they can partner on these deals and build even additional businesses, right? Like on top of what the club is doing, like just expanding their framework in terms of what they would consider an opportunity. Like that is going to be huge. And Tim, I want to close this off with just, outside of the club, like what is your Mount Everest? What are you building towards right now?
Yeah, so I came to this country. I was 17 years old. I tell people I came from, a lot of people, you meet somebody who says, I'm from Africa. They like literally think you are just in the Sahara, right? Like that's what most people think. But I tell people, no, actually, yes, those other Kenyans, they didn't come from there. But for me, I actually did come there because, I grew up in a mud hut. 7 years old, we wake up in the middle of the night and we'll beat up drums to push the elephant away. So because if they went through your crop, like the foot is big, elephant foot is like this, and now you have like a big school of them. They go through your field. Now you don't have anything left, right? And we used to go and drum them up and then kind of push them through, like direct them so they off the thing, and to get an opportunity to actually come into this country and then actually to build something that's kind of beyond me and something that's gonna live on. So let's say like this big building, this has been my ultimate dream. Is a big thing. So, I think when this thing is all said and done, whenever it's gonna be finished, I think it's gonna be 76 million. So that's my goal is 100 million. So I just needed one more deal that's 30 million, and then I'll be good. So ultimately, so this is kind of getting me there, and it does get me very excited.
That's incredible. This is a big milestone in what you're building, and Fractional, we're definitely very excited to be a big part of that. Tim, any final words for the audience that you want them to take away from this?
No, I'm pretty good. I would like anybody to connect, and then we can go over some few things and stuff. I mean, that would be pretty awesome.
I love it. Well, for everyone listening, thank you for tuning in. Tim is doing something incredible, and the timing is now, right? If this is something that you're interested in, definitely reach out to Tim. The club is not going to be open forever. It is something that is moving very quickly. As we've shared, Tim's already got some members inside the club already. So if you want to be a part of the inner circle, definitely reach out to us, and we'll see you on the inside.
All right.